All right. Hey, everybody, what is going on? Happy Friday. First and foremost, great to see everybody. A lot has been happening over the last 6, 7 weeks in our industry from a Profluence lens. And gosh darn it, I love these moments once a month right now when we're able to bring in a founder, an investor, an executive to come in and really shed light on what they're seeing in the market. And so for everybody who is tuning in for the first time, we're going to go over a couple housekeeping things, and then we're going to hop right into format and conversation. If you haven't had the chance to connect with me, my name's Scott Garber, built Profluence with Andrew Petcash. We have Chad Eichten, who I'm sure you've been in touch with at some point along the journey, who's our director of growth. If you haven't, I highly recommend doing so, as he'll help you navigate what's going on. As I mentioned, we're coming off of a really fun stretch here from peak, where we got the industry together, to our Capital Summit in New York, which is then flowing right into some of our global sporting events. We're staring FIFA right down the barrel. So we're going to be having our Innovation of Soccer get together here in a couple weeks. And then, as we continue to build out Profluence, this is a community. So we ask everybody to continue to share their feedback, what you want to see more of, what's working, help your neighbor, all of those fun things. With that being said, we believe that intelligence, access, is one of the biggest binding agents of community. And as we're going through so much change within the sporting world, it's important to bring in folks that are helping shape it. So today we're going to run this like a live podcast. So we're going to do the first 20 to 30 minutes. I'm going to interview Ben. We're going to get a pulse on his origin story, where he comes from, how he's made his mark in the space, and spend a lot of time on where the space is going, really focusing and leaning in on the attention economy, the creator economy, and the evolution of media with sports as the foundation. And then as we're going through the conversation, if you guys do have questions, we're going to make sure that there's time at the end of it for Q&A so that you can build rapport with Ben, ask questions. We ask that you keep them tight. This isn't story time, but it's a great way to put a face to the name and then use the platform for follow-up from there. I think that sort of gets through my notes. So, look at Ben. I'm sure you speak on stages in front of thousands of people. They'll give you a big preamble. It's not my story to tell, though, man. So welcome to Profluence. We're going to dive right into it and give everybody on the call today a little insight into who you are as a person, not just how you express yourself in the business world, but what's been Grubb's journey and how did you land in the middle of the creator economy. And I think that'll set the foundation for a heck of a conversation here.
Thanks, Scott. It's good to be here. So I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, youngest of six boys. I think, was trying to find my own path. And so I had five elder brothers to kind of observe and see what they did right or wrong and the paths that they were kind of taking. I took an interest at a young age in media and journalism. And, when I was 12, I started producing a TV show on cable access. What wasn't like Wayne's World, but it was in the same kind of distribution realm. And through high school, had an interest in in dabbling into other forms of media, and just started making cold calls. And so I found myself as a youth reporter for KMBR in San Francisco, working on high school sports, and then cold called my way into becoming a writer for the Alabama newspaper group. And then when I was a junior and senior in high school, I landed a job working on High School Sports Focus, which in the 90s was the preeminent show in the Bay Area for high school sports. And so if you're an athlete, you wanted to be on a show. If you were interested in sports broadcasting, you wanted to work on the show. So I was fortunate to kind of get my foot in the door. And by my senior year in high school, was a segment producer, so on that side. So I was the only one of the six, I would say, to kind of to go down that path in media, kind of journalism. That's actually what guided me to go to Syracuse. They have a great program for sports broadcasting. But a lot of the advice I actually had from mentors in high school was to study business, go run myself out. I also kind of found that I was just as interested in what was happening behind the scenes and in management as what was happening kind of in front of the camera. That's a little bit of my quick kind of origin.
No, I love it. I love it. And, I knew that sports was a through line paired with media. And, Ben, I want to talk about, as you started to turn sort of post Syracuse, you spent some time outside of the US. You got wide perspective, I think, from a global lens on the evolution of this economy. And then you spent some time early days at YouTube. So would love to understand, like, from sort of your early entrepreneurial days to then finding your professional sea legs underneath you. When did you start to realize that the creator was going to be this center point of development as we start to look at sports? It was always the league, and then we started to look at like the athlete becoming the superstar. The NBA did a great job of that. At what point in your journey did you start to realize, hey, there's something unique about the creator and the platforms we're building around it to see where the puck was going?
I think it was right around the time that YouTube was formed. So I was at eBay and leading marketing in parts of Asia, and we had a policy that we actually couldn't advertise on television, and so we had an interest in doing brand marketing. And my agency said, "Hey, there's this new video platform where you can actually make videos go viral. Why don't we go over there?" And so we were doing content marketing on YouTube in like 2006, 2007, and that's also where I think we, or at the time, for becoming aware of individuals kind of on the platform. Prior to that, I worked at Yahoo and I actually led Yahoo Broadcast, but that was more of a closed system. And so there was no way for people to kind of upload videos to Yahoo and get distribution. You actually, it was whatever we decided to produce and kind of distribute from that standpoint. We had the infrastructure, we had the technology, but Yahoo just didn't do the platform play, I guess, where anyone can kind of upload. Saw that more actually when I was at Turner Broadcasting, and there was a couple things. One, we actually made a bet on an individual creator who was actually based in China, and for just different business reasons, we actually couldn't get distribution of our cable channels through television in China for different reasons. But from a digital standpoint, there was actually no block. And so what we thought was, okay, through the digital team, we could actually be the way in. And we came across a creator that actually had some IP that they developed on their blog on Cena. And so we acquired that and then worked with them. And we thought, well, one, they're from China, lower percentage chance that that's actually going to get kind of shut down by the government. But what we'd seen was how someone actually used the internet to kind of go build a brand and an IP. And I think at the company at the time, there was not a big appreciation that there was really any value for something that was actually created online. So if it was a book, it was a comic, it was a TV show or a film, like, yes, you can go create consumer products and other things with that. Not so much that it was actually online. But what we saw were like early signs of fandom. And as we were working with this talent and then developing the IP, we were then doing an early version of fan meet and greets, and people were showing up and actually wanted to meet the person. And then we saw them travel from kind of event to event. So there was that piece. And when I came over to YouTube in 2012, one was I actually skipped the part at eBay, a different version of a creator, I guess, in a sense, but like more of an entrepreneur. But we had power sellers that were thriving on the platform coming out of Asia, and they were generally in their early 20s. And a lot of them just didn't know what they didn't know. And so they were just out there experimenting. But they had access to manufacturing and new goods. And we had some of the most prolific sellers selling iPhone cases and accessories when the iPhone launched out of Hong Kong. But they were good at building kind of a brand and a community on the eBay platform. And then it was a business, and they were employing dozens of people sitting behind like one eBay account. And so it wasn't just a person selling used goods or collectibles. It was someone who was like, I'm going to go create a retail presence. I'm just doing it on the eBay platform, and I'm going to focus this kind of globally. So I saw that entrepreneurship kind of from my time at eBay. And then at Turner, it was just the creativity that people actually had and how they use the internet to find their voice and kind of build their audience and then kind of build a fan base. Then when I came over to YouTube, I was seeing the combination of the two. I was seeing the entrepreneurs who were on that platform and saw the creatives. But early days was not seeing the infrastructure and like what we had kind of put around that individual at Turner. That wasn't the same thing kind of at YouTube. But it was like, if you do that, then that's going to become more sustainable. And this is only going to get bigger and bigger, not only in just like audience size, but then in terms of the commercial impact, from there. And so I just thought like, this is going to be a fun ride in a rocket ship, and off we go.
It's super interesting, and I'm gonna save this for a little later in the conversation, but would be remiss to not bring it up, Ben, where there's this interesting sort of swing back from, vanity to now we're watching these communities become social selling accounts again, right? We're watching the emergence of TikTok Live, we're watching the whatnots of the world pop up. So it's really interesting to hear as you describe the evolution of this, where like the origin started, it felt like we drifted into mass consumption, production, and now it's how do we start to go ahead and own that audience that we've been renting for so long. So we're going to maybe dangle that, Karen. I'd love to come back and just get your pulse on it, but just in the vein of sort of the evolution here, I'm curious, when we look at early YouTube creators, were you seeing sport as one of the predominant categories? Was it more lifestyle? And maybe second on to that is when did you realize that sport was going to become this sort of anchor pillar of, content, live entertainment, and a real ecosystem to build around?
In the again, I joined in 2012. I think around that time, YouTube had actually live stream IPL in India and
Okay.
actually had pretty big results with that. The rights though then switched over and YouTube lost it. But in that first kind of year, I think we saw like pretty significant kind of viewership and traction. But the company was not comfortable at the time to go pay minimum guarantees and upfronts for sports rights. And so the strategy was really around like clips and highlights. And so we're going to be shoulder content to the major games and the teams in the leagues, or more so the leagues, and then the teams kind of within the league itself. So it was not a big thrust, I would say, within the business. And, early on, the creators that I kind of found that were in the Asia region, then also, I think this is representative kind of globally. The very early days, it was people, I think it was like accidental fame and fortune. And so in like 2006 or maybe up to like 2009, if you were using YouTube, a lot of people were just trying to share videos with friends and family. And YouTube was an easy file share service. And they weren't thinking so much of like, I'm trying to build subscribers and go build an audience. But that came. People enjoyed actually what they produced. They made comments and said you should upload more and more of that. I heard that origin story over and over when I joined and was trying to unpack like, why are you here of all things you could be doing with your time? Why are you being a content creator kind of on YouTube? And then I think from the category or content genre standpoint, yeah, more general entertainment, lifestyle. And then we started being purposeful as a company about trying to build out education, news. I was part of the team that helped build and launch YouTube Kids. And so that was like a original product from the ground up. But then it was like, how do we actually get people to go make content natively actually for YouTube? And then what are the different styles and things that we kind of see percolate in one market or region? And then how do we start to case study that and then bring that to other markets? I think the blend of sports and then entertainment, I think came a little bit later, and that's what we're seeing a lot of today. And it's not so much of the competition, but it's the content kind of around the competition.
Yeah, really well said. And I think that's going to be a nice sort of on ramp. You've done a lot of really amazing things through your decorated career, Ben, but good, I think has really changed and has illuminated the way that golf is being consumed, the way we're growing the game. So before I go down that, Ben, could you ever imagine when you started this journey that you would be investing and a part of shaping what the future of golf looks like through a creator-led YouTube channel? Hard stop there. You ever imagine this would be you?
No, not at all.
It's amazing, man. And I think that we've watched the evolution of when I grew up, it was Tiger Woods who I looked up to. And that's how a lot of people got into the game. And now we're looking at YouTube creators, and that's the on-ramp into this. And so as we go through these cultural shifts, put your investor hat on. Curious, what did you see as you were starting to look and evaluate the landscape, sports specific, creator specific? What were some of the signals that you were seeing from the market that ultimately led to you, moving and deploying into the good ecosystem?
So I think one was just again how the platform kind of evolved from hobbyists to people making part-time income to then full-time income. And again, I had seen that earlier in my career at eBay where we tracked people that became sellers and then power sellers and went from part-time to full-time income to then employing people. And so we're looking at how do we have ecosystem impact? And I work with governments across the Asia region kind of on that front. That then was following again when I came over to YouTube. So we talked a lot, or I thought a lot about sustainability. How is this not just a fleeting thing, but how do you go build a career doing what you're doing? And I think from that, then it's also revenue diversification. Like it's great to have the AdSense revenue from YouTube, but how else do you derive income? So then there's the sponsorship piece, which again, early days of YouTube, creators thought if I have a brand sponsor me, I'm selling out. And so they would hide the fact that they actually had any money coming in directly to them. The
Mm.
next phase to kind of overcome was then selling product and merchandise. And a lot of creators then felt like I don't want to monetize my audience and I don't want to push them to go buy product. Then new people kind of came into the platform and that was not their hang up at all. And they really went and leaned into that. And so you started then to kind of see how the commerce could start to thrive, off of the platform. So you had this AdSense platform revenue, then to direct sponsorship, then kind of the merchandise. Also, you have this subscriber base kind of grow and fandom grow. You have a subset of that audience that's saying, I want more. I'll pay you for more. I'll pay you for differentiated access, early access to content. And so you have a lot of these other services that different companies have tried to go off and offer that are a little bit adjacent kind of to YouTube, and then YouTube kind of builds it into its own product stack as well. So coming to all that, then when I saw, so there's that piece, and then I think what I was also across was the growth of the A market of people actually buying YouTube channels. And then so this was happening in the kids space with animation based content, and so you don't really know who's behind the scenes, and so you can acquire the channel, change out some of the people on the back end on that front. And then there was more activity happening with live action content, personality-based channels. But then there is always this question of the personality as a key man risk. Like, what if that person goes away? What if that person has some negative like PR swirl? How does that impact kind of the business, so to speak, on that front? So with all that as like some background and context, when I kind of first came across Good Golf and then got introduced to the company, started understanding more of the business. What I saw there was it was a real business. And it was from a content standpoint, you have a ensemble cast, people actually create content, build audience, build fandom. But there was in the beginning kind of this idea of like, we're going to go build a brand and then we're going to be able to commercialize that brand, not only just through content and ads, but then through consumer products. So it was planned out from the beginning, I think, on that standpoint. Then just seeing how the company had actually gone off and executed, it was like, okay, this is a bit more sustainable. The ensemble cast piece is not hanging on one person. You can actually have people come in. People have actually left. Other new people have actually come in. We've seen the business continue to kind of grow,
Mm.
from that standpoint. But also the brand side, I had heard, remember early on from creators like, oh, it'd be so great if one day I'm walking down the street and someone's actually wearing my merch and I make a comment to them and they don't know who I am, but they just like the product. And I was actually experiencing that. I came across people that knew Good just because of the hats.
Yep.
I had no idea that there was a YouTube channel. And when I told them, like, wait, are you kidding me? Like, do you not know there's a YouTube channel? And like, they're like, no. I pull it up and it's like, oh, great, I'm going to go watch this content. So there's been brand discovery and brand love just through retail, just as much as there is actually from content. So there's that diversification and how then kind of build things up is what we thought. There's something there. I think the response I was also getting in the market, it reminded me of early days working at eBay and at YouTube, just how effusive people were about the brand. And we didn't go through an exhaustive net promoter score, but just the feel there was that there was a high index there of promoters on that side. So again, it was a pretty good foundation to go lean into.
No, it's I mean, it seems to be working out well. And I mean, it's golf is continuing to expand. Ben, when you look at other sports, before I sort of get to where sports media is heading, do you think that there's certain sports that behave better for this thesis than others? Like golf feels like there is a real community element around it. I'm curious, as you look at it from an investment thesis, does this span across the global sporting landscape, or how do you sort of discern which pockets could adopt this model?
No, I do think it's definitely broader than golf. On the YouTube platform, the most kind of watched sport is football, or in America, soccer. The second most watched or engaged is combat sports. And so you don't just see, it's not just the content consumption, it's also the community around that. And so in England, the Sidemen, every year they put on a football match for charity. YouTube's been involved in supporting that, from the get-go. That live event is grown larger and larger, in size to, 80, 90,000 people in a stadium watching amateur kind of content creators, get gathered and play football. And from a live standpoint online, I think their last edition was like to 12 million kind of viewers. So it's pretty substantial. But that's people who are actually following the creators and the content throughout the year. And then you kind of have this marquee event that happens once a year. Then you see that in other sports, just around how communities kind of gathering around the sport. And then you start to see personalities kind of pick up and percolate, from there. Now, in terms of if there's not if, but like I would say the good playbook, is that being applied across every other sport? Not necessarily. There's opportunity for that, but that's not how I kind of see it right now. But there's different takes, I would say, in other sports and how that kind of moves in different markets.
Well, and I think that sort of leads beautifully into the next question is I'm curious, do you think good represents a preview of where sports media is heading? Where creator-led brands are going to become just as or more influential than the traditional sport networks or leagues themselves. I'm curious if you were to sort of put your in 3, 5, 7 years, where you think that, where you think we're going to be with the development of these channels.
It's definitely going to be it's going to be a bigger growing component, I think, of sport, especially with young people and how they kind of come online and how they consume content media and how they engage. And so their notion of a personality or a star, I think from that standpoint, is definitely kind of changed over time. When I went to my first good event, it was in the summer of 24 in Indiana. Several thousand people, some had driven 8 hours to actually get to that venue and spent all afternoon kind of watching a round of golf, again, largely by the content creators kind of from Good. Everyone's actually having a great time. I spent some time talking with some of the folks, and as they're there throughout the day and just seeing again the lengths that people were taking to get there, and that to them was a very satisfying day. That's all the in-person kind of experience, and then you have like the online kind of consumption. Then to the I'll become a brand ambassador, so I'm going to buy product and actually represent that well, and how that kind of carries through. How that's happening, I say, with from older elementary school kids into middle school, then into high school. And I think as that group continues to kind of grow up, I think they grow with it, not out of it. And so that is, I think, an opportunity for others kind of again just look at kind of the youth consumption as an indicator, as a trend of where this is going over the next decade.
And I'm going to go a little off script and then we'll have a couple questions. And guys, I see the chat opening up. If you do have questions for Ben, please feel free to drop them. We'll give you a chance to come on here. Ben, I recently, YouTube has dominated sort of the creator airwaves, but there's other platforms that are demanding huge attention. With the World Cup coming up, we know that FIFA's taken a big initiative in Roblox. I'm curious, when you think about the expansion of like a good type property, do you look at some of these other community platforms where we see hundreds of millions of engaged users in these communities and think about leveraging the brand into other digital platforms and communities? Curious your thoughts there.
Yes, I would say that across like all sports, and it's just a matter of like where consumers are kind of spending their time. So you could do that from a marketing lens of like I want to show up and kind of be present, where there is deep engagement. My younger daughters are pretty heavy Roblox consumer. Just looking at like the time spent, there it does eat into other kind of forms of entertainment. And so yeah, if from a sports lens, if my interest is actually in that female demographic, it's a great platform for that. Not to say that there aren't actually boys as well on the platform, but I know there's a lot of properties actually on the Roblox platform that index really well and quite strongly actually for women on that side. And then yeah, I think with the other kind of video platforms, short form, whether that's TikTok or Instagram. You're mentioning Whatnot before, but in the commerce standpoint, there's great community kind of on the Whatnot platform. eBay now is kind of leading to the same thing with eBay Live. So it's not just a simple kind of purchase of goods. It's the community aspect that kind of comes around that shopping kind of buying experience. For the good team has actually showed up on Whatnot before. I would expect to kind of see this with other companies that we work with in other sports as well. I don't think it's just like only relevant actually within the golf kind of ecosystem.
Yeah, and I mean we're just hearing from our side just a massive index of where there's an evolution of we're just no longer vanity and pushing attention. It's how do I start to engage and build this community, and how do I, where I earn the trust, what do I do with them? And as I mentioned earlier, we hear social selling, and sort of taking this boom of what's happened in memorabilia, and now how do we take these platforms and do it in a more live setting? So it's just neat to watch it. And again, as I listen to you, business seems to be cyclical, Ben. It's but there's new tools, it's more powerful. So I'd be remiss as we start to turn the corner and wind this down. AI has just completely come in and evolutionized the way that we do things, but it's also created this component of trust or mistrust when we're consuming online. So I'm curious, as you continue to look at new opportunities, do you put more value on from the investor lens, the content, the community, the engagement? Like, what are some of the indicators that you would, sort of give to a founder or a creator as they're looking to raise capital or grow to lean into in this new world of AI that we're living in?
In some ways, generative AI is actually quite useful in aspects of the business. I think from a content kind of production standpoint, there's certain things in that process where I've already seen AI get woven in. I think from a business practice, marketing, database management, CRM, insights. From that side, when I was at Google, we refer to it as machine learning. But I think it was just the massive data sets and trying to actually uncover kind of insights and knowing who to talk to or what content to kind of put in front of a user at the right time and all that machine learning. The stat when I was at YouTube was I think every day there was like 200 million different options of a video to put in front of every user on their homepage. And YouTube had to get just very smart about like what are the first 8 videos, thumbnails to show you of 200 million options from that side. You go down to any kind of business, there's a lot of data kind of acquisition, from that side, but then just like the data management. I talked to a lot of folks that have e-commerce businesses and try to probe on the CRM side, and it's pretty weak. I saw a business recently where, they had a power buyer actually go and spend thousands of dollars, and they were showing me photos of actually what they were buying. And then I messaged the company and I was like, I'm just curious, this email address, where do they rank actually in your buyers on a year-to-date basis? In that particular case, they were number 3. And so I actually sent a note back to the person. I said, you're number 3. And they thought, number 3, I got to get to number 1. I'm going to go back to buy more. And I was just
Interesting.
thinking about like the behavior there, but it was like just the bit of recognizing people that are actually big brand advocates, quite simple things. I've done this myself with different e-commerce businesses where I don't log in. Actually, I buy and check out as a guest. But I buy multiple times actually from that seller. And what I'm waiting to see is are they going to piece together same name, same address, same credit card? I just never logged in. Are they going to see that I'm a repeat buyer? Are they going to put me into some kind of funnel and journey from that side? So I think there's just a bit about like the data management organization, on
Mm.
that side of how to use it effectively. I don't think it's all just definitely not a doom and gloom kind of perspective. Just going back to your question though, yeah, I think it's looking at is there a foundation in place of what to kind of grow, and what is it from a brand standpoint, that engagement, and how has that actually been trending kind of over time, and is that something that we could put more resource or capital kind of against that and actually grow that both whether it's a domestic business or internationally, from that side, and not obviously trying to steer away from these fleeting kind of businesses or things there. So there's, creators I've come, worked with over my career that have had hits. They don't quite understand why they actually got popular. They're not really sure what to do next. My view is like you should go figure that out first, and then we can kind of talk. It's a lot of work to try to go and do that for people. But people who kind of know who they are, where they are, and what they want to be, a lot easier to kind of engage on that front.
I think that's true across business as a whole, but like specifically here as well. All right, Ben, last little rapid fire, and then we're going to go into some Q&A. But on the personal side, as
Yeah.
the world is moving so fast, we're over inundated with information, and as an investor, there's a ton of innovation and opportunity out there. Ben, how do you stay sharp? What are some best practices that you implement to stay current on the market, to make sure that you're not getting pulled down into rabbit holes and, helping your portfolio companies and see new investments that are coming in? Curious if there's any tips or tricks as a
Uh,
founder investor that you would share with the group, that have helped you become a lifelong learner and student of the game.
I think what you just ended with is maybe the key thing is just to to go into it, and it's always trying to learn and grow. I mean, you asked me earlier, like maybe if you're going back, would I think that the position and level of involvement I'm actually having right now in golf, if I would have called it out, then I said no. But I also say I think with Good, when that opportunity kind of came up, what I saw there was a CEO and co-founder that was in a certain situation with his business and was looking for support. And so really just the engagement started there, kind of talking about how to support an individual and the business and where they were. I kind of saw through that there was an opportunity to offer support. But I also saw the other way is like I'm actually going to learn and grow. There's a lot of things that I don't know yet, and so it's going into it and having that exchange. As I interact with other founders or creators or just other people kind of within the industry, it's constantly trying to look at that and take insights and learnings. You get it from one and kind of apply it to another. I learn a lot actually from my kids constantly, and kind of like from a sports lens, what they're into, why they're into certain things. My son, who's 16, we talk a lot about. He's very into basketball and lacrosse, but on the basketball side, just the NIL space, I've got very informed, through that, actually through his lens on that side, and just youth from high school to collegiate, and kind of up. And he's always saw Jared McCain as a TikToker and is just blown away that Jared McCain plays in the NBA. But that was his lens. That's how he knew him. Here's a guy who's on TikTok first because he was following him when he was at Centennial in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a mix, and it's like you can always learn things from your kids just as much as I try to impart wisdom to them. But that's probably what guides me is
I
just a constant yearning just to kind of to learn and grow.
I love that. It's so important to be a student of the game. And as a young father, I am being reminded that I'm learning from these knuckleheads just as much as they're learning from me. So, and I think it just all starts with being present, being curious. And the way we were doing things 2, 3, 4 years ago, that's not going to be what takes us to the promised land of where we want to be in 2, 3, or 4 years. And so, there's a through line of folks that we get to interview on the Profluence side of being a lifelong learner, insatiably curious. And if you look at where, Ben has sort of laid and made his mark, it is not in what was going on, it's where it's going. And so, Ben, we're going to wrap this. This has been incredible just to go ahead and get inside your mind. Ben, as always, man, from the Profluence team, from the Profluence community, thank you for being a participant in shaping what the future of sport looks like and being so gracious with your time and wisdom to come and help all of us as we build alongside you. Hope everybody enjoys the rest of your Friday. Again, if we didn't get to your question, please feel free to reach out to Ben, LinkedIn, on our platform. He's doing amazing things. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. We'll catch y'all next week. See you
Thanks,
guys.
Scott.